Why am I getting so off balance here when I'm just meeting a new person? Because before, if you met a new person when you were like in these tribes hunting and gathering that you didn't know, it was fight or flight.
I really dislike how people say, oh, this social anxiety is a disorder. Like, no, it's a natural evolutionary mechanism that kept us alive.
Naturally.
And now we're in an environment where we have access to billions of people around the planet who have access to an internet connection, and we're living in cities with millions of people. This is just not natural.
Just yesterday, we were looking through some old baby videos of us and our family when we were little.
Yeah.
And I think from the starting point of when you're like 1 or 2, and for me too, just like starting when we were 2 years old, so many of the videos were just us singing songs and like really doing little performances.
That really stood out to us as to like the majority of the videos was us singing and dancing as little kids in front of other people.
On little performances that were extremely cringy. But
very
anyway,
cringy. It was cute at first, and then it got a little bit cringy.
And then it got very, very
And then it
cringy.
got, really cringy. But I feel like there's something important about that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, like how... I don't know if that's the case for a lot of people, but I think one thing that stood out to us is that we started performing and putting ourselves out there before we were even intentional enough and realized we had the ability to choose to do it.
Well, there was one video where you had to be less than like 1 year old.
I was like 1 year old.
And it was our dad just grabbing your hands, and I was in the back, and he was just going, I like to move it, move it. He likes to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Do, 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 do. And then I'm in the back just like just going along with it, and it's great. You have your little baby mohawk, and it's just amazing.
And of course, before then, we didn't do any YouTube stuff, obviously. That came way later. But Daddy and Mommy would still take a ton of videos and pictures of us and put them on Facebook. A lot of videos, whenever we'd be singing a song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It was, it was on Facebook. And a lot of the times it was private, but it was just documenting. And I think I grew up being comfortable in front of a camera, and I don't think I really
in front of other people,
in front of an audience.
Just a lot of kids will even like to sing in front of their parents. Even is like, oh, that's scary.
But I started out 1 year old doing a dance, and I had an audience, right? And obviously, I was pretty oblivious as to what was going on. I was just like, why are my arms moving? But it was as I grew that was just something that I was really used to, and I don't think I really appreciated that until we started looking through those videos again.
Yeah, well, I think that it was something that was really interesting for us in terms of how we are able to get to this point where we can carry ourselves in the way that we do, and also just to feel confident in this modern environment. That's something that we were reflecting on. It's just that it's so hard nowadays for people to try to build confidence when things are changing so fast. Most of the people that you engage with, you don't have a super close relationship with. Either it's like, you're in school and then you're changing classes every year, and so it's a totally new group of people, or you're in a work setting and then you might change jobs, or you might just have the people that you're around every day changing all the time. People are moving more often. You're away from extended family. This is just nothing like the environment in which we evolved in, where it was very easy to build confidence, because before the cognitive revolution, you were in a tribe of like 50 to 150 people that didn't change throughout your entire life, right? You're just engaging with people who actually really, really know you. Yeah. Right? And then you're also just doing the same sorts of things, like most everything about life and how to survive and what it means to be on this earth by the time you're like 7, right? Because it was just very simple. We're going to get food, we're going to, get water, we're going to, be together and try to, survive. And it was just kind of the same thing every day. Whereas now, the number of different careers you could choose and the amount of times it's going to change, the amount of times you're going to have your relationships changing is just unprecedented. And so it makes so much sense as to why people would feel very insecure. Yeah.
It's weird. There's nothing in our past that's like
gonna prepare
prepare us for like being in front of the cameras, and I don't see, or like an audience a lot of the time.
Or even just meeting a new person, like throughout history,
just meeting a new person,
you didn't meet new people,
and
right?
I think that's why I think it's really important to realize that, because you can be like, why am I getting so, a lot of the time
people have this term social anxiety.
Yeah, why am I getting so off balance here when I'm just meeting a new person? Well, it's because there's nothing before, if you met a new person when you were like in these tribes hunting and gathering that you didn't know, and that you didn't know because they weren't in your tribe, it was fight or flight. You either
ran out of there or you're gonna like try to kill them so they don't kill you. And
exactly.
It's like, and I really dislike how people say, oh, this social anxiety is a disorder. Like, no, it's a natural evolutionary mechanism that kept us alive.
Naturally.
And now we're in an environment where we have access to, billions of people around the planet who have access to an internet connection, and we're living in cities with millions of people. This is just not natural. And so to say that there's something wrong with your brain is just not accurate.
Yeah, and not only the cities, but I think it's a step up to be on social media in front of like, here's this, direct communication thing that allows you to scream all of your thoughts and your random, this is this stage where you can theoretically access the whole world.
Well, every swipe on your home screen is a new person you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And I think that this is something that we wanted to talk about in terms of how do you actually build confidence in this environment, because I think that part of what we were mentioning in terms of like what we were doing as babies is kind of like some of what has helped us to try to navigate this environment, because part of what it is just that, we were talking about how confidence is actually really, really important. And part of the reason why relates to what we've been talking about in terms of the difference between the conscious and subconscious brain, where the consciousness is whatever you're aware of, right? But the subconscious has so much more processing power than the conscious mind, and it's all your instincts and your memories and your intuition. And the subconscious is the one that can really come out when you're confident, because
you're comfortable.
Because the number one goal of your subconscious is to keep you alive. So if you're not comfortable, and if you're in a room with people that you don't know, you don't feel confident, you're going to be doing risk assessment, right? You're going to feel that anxiety and all of that just kind of makes you close up and makes it hard to, somebody's like, what's your name? You're like, you can't even forget my own name. You can't even remember the most basic of things. And that's because if you're cut off from your subconscious, that's just the instinctual subconscious answer, when you're navigating social situations. And so it's like, no wonder if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel safe, you won't be able to engage with that subconscious in a way that is very like quick and natural, which is why it's like you are
left to your conscious mind. You're in the moment, the one that doesn't have any of the experience except no experience. It's just
the conscious mind is just very limited in terms of what you can process. And so that's why it's like you're around your friends and your family and you're like super witty, you're all feeling comfortable and everything's great, and then you meet somebody new and it's all of a sudden it's like, who am I?
That's
like,
the difference between making jokes, well, that's one of the differences between making jokes with your family or your friends and then having to do stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And it's like you got to put yourself out there. It's a completely new environment, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What happened? And I think we're pretty comfortable right now. And I don't think I've thought a lot about it before, because I never really was thinking about like, oh, how did I get this amazing skill? You know what I mean? I don't think I really realized how much it needs to be developed. But looking back, I'm seeing how many things were in my favor from year one of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that we have to have a radically new approach when it comes to how do you build confidence and comfort in a new world where we're constantly exposed to things that throughout all of evolution, if you were to engage with something that had the same amount of stimulation as a TikTok video, like it would have been like bombs going off and like people, like 1,000 people singing and dancing. Like that's the equivalent of like how would you recreate the amount of stimulation and novelty before we had these screens, and it would have just been something insane, you know, like it's just something that you would have had this increasing like, you know, anxiety and like trying what's going on here, and now that's just something that's so easily accessible and is just completely normal in our lives today. And so that's why we were kind of reflecting on our own experience as to how we've kind of gotten to this point, and there was a lot of things that went into it that weren't necessarily intentional at the time or intentional for different reasons, but now looking back, I'm like very grateful that we had certain experiences.
Yeah, because it does make a difference.
Yeah,
right?
It really does. And one of them was those public performances. That's something that when we were younger, on our door frame, our dad, he was a former wedding singer, and he did a lot of like public speaking and those sorts of things in his professional career. And so he kind of understood this process of like almost desensitizing yourself to being able to perform in front of other people. And so
when I was 2 years old,
we sang
Do Re Mi together on a stage in front of our preschool.
You were you were way more cool-headed than me. My mom had to bribe me with ice cream.
Yeah.
In Chinese, ice cream is bing chilling, so she was just like bing chilling, and I'm like, okay, fine.
Well, I think it's because well, don't be too hard on yourself, because I was 2, so obviously, like,
you were a little more oblivious.
I was way more oblivious. I was just like, okay, we're doing this now. I know what to do, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, actually, one of the things that we discovered is that when you're that age, you're running completely on your subconscious. Yeah. So I think that's why 2-year-olds are just like, you know, toddlers,
fearless.
They're just totally comfortable.
Yeah.
They're just like wandering around doing their thing, you know. There's a Bill Burr comedy about that. That was
with their
really,
with their little tank top and their pot belly, just like chilling around with their
beer
cup
bod,
of
even
milk.
though they haven't drank any alcohol.
yeah. It's pretty hilarious.
They'll start telling a story and they'll start right in the middle of it. They're just doing what they feel like, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, like 2 years old, I'm up there with you, and we're singing Do Re Mi, and you're saying Do Di Female D, you know, and I'm saying Do.
I think I did that part.
No.
But yeah.
Oh, well, I was the star.
You were, because you were less nervous than me. So I had to be bribed.
But anyway, we did so many performances like that.
Well, that's part of what, so our dad basically had us, on our door frame, we had a bunch of ticky marks where he said, once you get to 50 public performances, you're not going to feel like, you're not going to fear it anymore. Yeah. Right? And it's not that you, like, the nervousness goes away. It's just that it's kind of, like, at a point where it's, like, you know the drill. You know, it's like, you're going to feel nervous, but once you're there, you're going to feel comfortable and be okay. And so we just kind of, every time we did a public performance, we'd put a little ticky mark. And then, and we just kind of kept working on it. And I think at some point we just kind of stopped doing it because we definitely reached 50 and it wasn't, like, you know, important anymore. But I think that was something that was really important for us to understand intellectually and then slowly understand through our experience, is like, this is going to feel scary. That's not a disorder. This social anxiety is not a disorder. This is something that's completely normal. Yeah. That you can overcome.
Also, I think one thing that's really important is that whenever we got like a boo-boo, or whenever we had a fight with a friend, or whenever we went up and performed with our dad or something like that, our parents never overreacted to it. They never acted like it was a huge deal. And maybe it is a big deal for a 2-year-old to go up there, with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old to go up there and sing a song in front of an audience. But it was always, from my perspective, I just remember having fun. Yeah. I just remember being like, oh, this is a lot of fun, you
Yeah.
know? I'm jazzing with my dad, singing bullfrog blues, you know, and with your little... your
pink poofy dresses.
Yeah, with our pink poofy dresses. And it's like, I just remember it being fun. I don't remember being scared.
Well, that's
at
one
all.
thing that in terms
but
of...
I think the reason why is because our dad and our mom, especially our dad, was just doing it with us for fun. You know, they were just acting like, oh, we're gonna do this now because it's fun. Not, are you ready for the biggest performance of your life? And if you screw up in front of everyone, well, just don't think about that because it's going to be okay. And it's like even the way that adults will communicate with kids around these things when they're trying to make them feel comfortable will just make them feel more nervous because they're acting like they need to feel comfortable.
Well, that's the same thing that we were talking about. You went to the doctor's office and you were going to get a shot. And like the nurse was just like doing this whole like hoppy dance routine almost to try to distract you and be like, it's okay. When I just count to 3 as fast as you can. If I haven't given you a shot yet, then you don't need to get the shot. And she was like going around trying to like distract you, and it was just like a whole she was literally blatantly lying to you, saying that if I get to 3 and I haven't given you the shot, you don't need to get the shot, when I'm like, of course you need to get the shot.
Basically what she was doing is she was trying to distract me from the pain so that she could like poke it in without me even noticing it.
When it's like why are you making such a big deal out of it? You know, it's like, sure, a couple decades ago, kids just got shots, and it was just you're getting a shot now. You know,
like it doesn't even hurt that much. But if you believe that it's a big deal, it's going to hurt a lot more, and you're going to be really, really scared. Like that happened so many times when I went to the doctor's office. So recently, when I went to get a shot for going to India, I was feeling the anxiety inside my stomach because even though I knew intellectually that it was just completely not a big deal. 3 seconds of pain at most, and it's barely any pain at all. The time I went then, there was a really good nurse who just came in, done, and then she just left. And that was really good. And when I actually tried to like meditate and actually be aware of it, I realized it barely hurt at all. And yet I was feeling the anxiety because every single time I went, the other nurses would just like act like it was a huge deal.
Well, maybe to get a little bit back on track, I think part of it is also, I think singing and dancing specifically are also really important in terms of those are some of the most vulnerable things you can do, right? Because just you know, there's public speaking, but it's like public singing, right? It's like public, that's like even harder. And so part of it is getting comfortable with that. Also, when we were younger, it was a lot easier because of course when you're operating purely on the subconscious, there's no issue of the conscious like overthinking and kind of getting in the way. But so when you start to turn 5, that's when it can maybe become a little bit more difficult. But then especially when you start to hit those teenage years, that's when it's like the social awareness, that's when it starts to become even more difficult. And I think that being able to also know what's coming and seeing like, you know, that's when you start to have more of that awareness, and that makes you a lot more nervous. And so I think part of being able to also overcome that is a lot of what we did was also just being able to engage with new people, because that's something you need to train yourself to do in today's age, where historically it wasn't necessary, but now it absolutely is. And that's a lot of what we were doing, especially when we were, you know, running our own companies, is like you're continuously engaging. Like when you started your dog business, Positivity, you were just going up to random people in the apartment who had dogs saying, hey, I have a dog sitting and walking business, and you can...
And giving them
and giving...
It was a little bit... Like, I acted like a crazy salesperson, but that's how you, like, get their attention and get a card in their hand. I just ran up to them, take it! My name is Isla, and I'm with Positive Pooch Sitting, and here's my card. If you ever need dog sitting, just contact me on the card. This is the card, right? And it's like I didn't get a ton of people, like, compared to the amount of people I gave out cards to, some people were just like, get away from me. As if they wouldn't say that, but like their look and their demeanor was just like, okay, bye-bye now. Some people were like, really answered this? Oh, like, wow. You know? Some people reached out to me and I got a really good long-term client. It's not always gonna end up being like... sometimes you're going to get rejected.
I think that's what it is that it's a desensitization to rejection.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Because okay, you get rejected by one person, there's 8 billion left.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's like, okay, so and that's something that we're not used to thinking, because if you're living in a tribe of 150 people, if one person doesn't like you, that's a big deal. Right? That can significantly impact your livelihood, right? Whereas now, it's like, okay, if one person doesn't like you, move on.
You have most of the world at your fingertips. Everyone who has the internet connection and is able to, you know, use the platforms you do. Mm-hmm. You have that whole world at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And you can use it if you aren't so afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
You don't want to let that stop you, and it's like easier said than done. Thanks.
But I think that's part of what we were able to go through when it came to being able to meet new people and being able to put yourself out there. And especially one great thing about the opportunity we have now is like you can reinvent yourself with every single new person that you've met, because generally it's not that all these social circles are so closely connected like they were before. And so that's a really great thing, because you can actually rapidly iterate yourself when it comes to meeting new people in this environment. And I think that we should be able to take advantage of that, but it's just the hurdle of being able to get over that anxiety and being able to put yourself out there and know intellectually what that is, just enough so that you can use your willpower to get over that initial hump.
Just remember
so that you can start that desensitization process.
It's like a shot at the doctor's office, and you're the only person, like, and you do not need to hype yourself, you know, up around it in terms of just like making yourself feel like this is a huge deal, because it doesn't have to be. And if you think that it's going to be extremely painful to the point that you don't even want to try, then it's going to be way more painful than it actually is, and it's going to stop you from really achieving that potential.
And that's why I do think it is damaging that how we kind of approach that, in the sense of trying to be overly kind of sensitive to that, where it's kind of training young people to think that, oh, this is a much bigger deal than it actually is, in the sense, I mean, it feels like a big deal for the first like 100 people, and then after that you kind of start to know the drill, and it's still something in which, like, you know, I'm gonna definitely feel way more comfortable in a room of people I do know than people I don't know, but it's still kind of like being able to continuously become more experienced with that process. And I think that part of it is, you know, just to speak from my own experience, I think that there are some necessary conditions for having that confidence that are way more difficult to achieve in today's world. And one is being able to know yourself. And I think that was something that I was able to kind of overcome in terms of being able to be radically transparent with the people that I love. And radical transparency is a concept introduced by Ray Dalio and his companies. But I think that more personally, it just kind of means like, how can you be absolute? There's a difference between being honest and transparent. And honesty just means that you don't lie, but that means you could definitely be concealing a lot from other people just by being honest. Being transparent is completely different, where you're just kind of like being able to share everything that's going on with you. And I think that part of what's really difficult about today's world is that most people don't have somebody that they can be radically transparent with. To find even one person is really hard, because the same thing that's great about how like one person rejects me, but there's 8 billion more, that also means that people are getting very used to leaving people in their life, right? And so it's really hard to find those really long-term relationships in which you can build enough trust that you can be radically transparent, because it's just so much easier for that person to disappear, right? So there's a much higher cost to that now. And that, I think that is a really big problem, because I think before I definitely struggled with being radically transparent even within the family. And that was something that I think
that's with everything that was going on in our family, where literally from the beginning we're dancing and singing with each other. We're doing all of these things. That's why I didn't realize how like, because I still struggled with that. I still struggle with not being in a good headspace, you know, in front of a camera or in front of a bunch of people.
Right.
And yet that's after everything we've done from literally since I was 1 year old.
Yeah. And so that's something that I think was really important for me to kind of get over, was Like, if you aren't able to be radically transparent with another person, you're not going to be able to fully know yourself and show yourself that you're comfortable with yourself. Because that's part of what that is like, I'm comfortable sharing these things that are very vulnerable and very personal. And that's part of showing a kind of comfort with being uncomfortable, and that's part of what is necessary to build that kind of confidence, but also in order for you to kind of understand yourself and know yourself, because if you're just stuck there with your thoughts, it's really, really difficult to really know what's going on. And you can try to do that with writing, and you
which
can
helps.
which can do a lot. But if there's no one that you're actually sharing that with, that's something that I've learned is just that it's not going to work, you know. And I think that when it comes to also being able to find that comfort is also just being able to, be transparent with the people around you, and have those kinds of experiences in that desensitization process. But I think that the main important thing here is being able to find an environment and a community in which you can start to practice these things. And that's part of what we're trying to do with our platform, is like, here's a space where you can test these things out, because I think that that's part of what is missing, is that supportive environment, because it can be so high stakes of like, okay, I can try this out, but if I'm not in a group of supportive people, I can just have a bad experience and just ruin that experience for me, and just not have that confidence to try again. And that's what's most important, is trying again. And so that's why I think that's what we're trying to do, is like, how do you cultivate a community of people who care and who are supportive? And I think that that's what we've done. I think that's an incredible opportunity for anybody who is looking to start that process.